Hello everyone. Have you ever wondered what happens to a vaccine vial from the moment it leaves the factory to the moment it reaches a child's arm? Today we are going to understand the universal immunization program and cold chain management through a spotter's refresher and clinical field guide from the Department of Community Medicine. Immunity has a journey. It begins with maternal protection during pregnancy, continues with the birth doses given to the newborn, moves through infancy and childhood with a series of scheduled vaccines, and is protected throughout by a logistical shield, the cold chain and equipment that keeps every vaccine potent until it is used. Let us begin with TD, which stands for tetanus and low dose diphtheria toxoid, and it has now replaced TT. The dose is zero point 0.5 milliliters. TD1 is given as soon as pregnancy is confirmed. TD2 is given 4 weeks after TD1, and a TD booster is given during pregnancy if 2 TD doses were received within the past 3 years. In children, it is given at 10 years and 16 years with a maximum age of 16 years. It is given intramuscularly in the upper arm and no diluent is required. This vaccine protects against maternal, neonatal, and post abortal tetanus. Next is BCG, which uses the Moscow strain of Mycobacterium bovis. The dose is zero point zero 0.05 milliliters for infants under 1 month and zero point 0.1 milliliter for those above 1 month. It is given at birth with a maximum age of 1 year. It is administered intradermally in the left upper arm and it requires a diluent, sodium chloride. Now let us look at hepatitis B birth dose. The dose is zero point 0.5 milliliters and it must be given at birth within a maximum age of 24 hours. This is a critical time bound vaccine. It is given intramuscularly on the anterolateral side of the left mid thigh and no diluent is needed. Oral polio vaccine or OPV is bivalent, covering P1 and P3 strains. The dose is 2 drops. OPV 0 is given within 15 days of birth. OPV 1, 2, and 3 are given at 6, 10, and 14 weeks with a maximum age of 5 years. The OPV booster is given at 16 to 24 months, again with a maximum age of 5 years. It is given orally and no diluent is required. The pentavalent vaccine covers diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, hepatitis B, and HIV. The dose is zero point 0.5 milliliters given at 6, 10, and 14 weeks with a maximum age of 1 year. It is given intramuscularly on the anterolateral side of the left mid thigh and no diluent is needed. Rotavirus vaccine is a live attenuated vaccine. The dose is 5 drops given at 6, 10, and 14 weeks with a maximum age of 1 year. It is given orally and no diluent is required. Fractional IPV or fIPV is the Salk inactivated polio vaccine. The dose is zero point 0.1 milliliter given at 6 weeks, 14 weeks, and again at 9 months with a maximum age of 1 year. Doses at 6 and 14 weeks are given intradermally in the right upper arm, while the dose at 9 months is given in the left upper arm. No diluent is required. Pneumococcal conjugate vaccine or PCV protects against 13 serotypes of Streptococcus pneumoniae. The dose is zero point 0.5 milliliters. Doses 1 and 2 are given at 6 and 14 weeks with a booster at 9 months and a maximum age of 1 year. It is given intramuscularly on the anterolateral side of the right mid thigh and no diluent is needed. Measles and rubella vaccine or MR is a live attenuated vaccine. The dose is zero point 0.5 milliliters. The first dose is given at 9 months and the second dose at 16 to 24 months with a maximum age of 5 years. It is given subcutaneously at a 45-degree angle in the right upper arm and it requires the manufacturer supplied diluent. Japanese encephalitis vaccine or JE uses the live attenuated SA14 14 2 strain. The dose is zero point 0.5 milliliters. The first dose is given at 9 months and the second dose at 16 to 24 months. It is given subcutaneously at a 45-degree angle in the left upper arm, and it requires a diluent. DPT booster covers diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus. The dose is zero point 0.5 milliliters. The first booster dose is given at 16 to 24 months, and the second booster dose at 5 to 6 years, with a maximum age of 7 years. The first dose is given intramuscularly on the anterolateral side of the left mid thigh, and the second dose in the upper arm. No diluent is required. Vitamin A supplementation begins with a first dose of 1 milliliter, providing 1 lakh international units, and from the second to the ninth dose, 2 milliliters, providing 2 lakh international units. The first dose is given at 9 months, and doses 2 through 9 begin at 16 months, each spaced 6 months apart with a maximum age of 5 years. It is given orally with no diluent needed. Now, how do we know which vaccines are more vulnerable to temperature damage? This is explained through the vulnerability matrix, which separates heat sensitive vaccines from freeze sensitive vaccines. Among heat sensitive vaccines, BCG after reconstitution is the most sensitive, followed by OPV and Rota, then IPV, MR, Rotavirus, JE, DPT, BCG before reconstitution, and finally TT, Penta, Hepatitis B, and PCV, which are the least heat sensitive. On the freeze sensitive side, Hepatitis B is most sensitive, followed by PCV, Penta, IPV, DPT, and TT, which is least sensitive to freezing. The core rule here is simple: do not keep any vials that are expired, frozen, or with a vaccine vial monitor beyond its end point in the cold chain. Let us now understand the vaccine vial monitor, often called the silent sentinel of the cold chain. There is a common and dangerous misconception that must be cleared. The vaccine vial monitor does not indicate freezing damage. It is a time and temperature sensitive label that exclusively measures cumulative heat exposure. This brings us to the operational boundary, the visual cues for reading the vaccine vial monitor. If the inner square is lighter than the outer circle, the vaccine is usable and this falls in the safe zone. If the inner square becomes equal to or darker than the outer circle, it falls in the danger zone and the vaccine must be discarded. The rule here is clear: never keep vials with a vaccine vial monitor beyond the end point, as they may be mistakenly confused with potent vaccines. There are different types of vaccine vial monitors based on thermal resistance at 37 degrees Celsius. VVM 30 offers high resistance and lasts 30 days. VVM 14 offers moderate resistance for 14 days. VVM 7 offers low resistance for 7 days. And VVM 2 is highly sensitive, lasting only 2 days. An important concept here is the inherited weakness rule. In combined vaccines, the vaccine vial monitor matches the most heat sensitive component. For example, the entire DPT vaccine inherits the vaccine vial monitor classification of its highly sensitive pertussis component. Let us move to the vaccine carrier, an essential piece of field equipment. The 1.7-liter vaccine carrier is used at the PHC and subcenter level, maintained between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, with a holdover time of 12 hours. Four standard ice packs form a protective inner square, the walls of the carrier, while 15 to 20 vials of mixed antigens are positioned strictly in the center, forming the payload. An important warning here: DPT, DT, TT, and diluents must never touch frozen ice packs directly, and the carrier must always remain tightly closed. Now, How do we prepare the coolant ice pack correctly? Ice packs must be filled with water, leaving exactly 20% airspace at the top and capped tightly, while the lower 80% is filled with water. This 20% airspace allows for the physical expansion of water as it turns into solid ice during the mandatory freezing phase, which must last more than 24 hours. However, there is a critical flaw to be aware of. Solid ice destroys freeze sensitive vaccines. In the danger state, the ice pack is at minus 20 degrees Celsius, straight from the freezer, and this is lethal to DPT, TT, and hepatitis B if placed directly in the carrier. This is why we need a rest phase called conditioning, where the ice pack is left at room temperature until the internal ice begins to melt. Once it reaches 0 degrees Celsius, it enters the safe state and is now safe to insulate freeze sensitive vaccines. How do we verify that the ice pack has reached this safe state? This is done through the shake test. When you hold the ice pack at a 45-degree angle and shake it, you should be able to hear the water sloshing and feel a single block of ice shifting freely inside. This confirms the presence of the air pocket, the liquid water surrounding the ice block, and a single floating block of solid ice. The protocol is clear. The ice pack is only ready for the carrier when you hear the sloshing and feel that single block of ice moving freely. Finally, let us talk about the final safeguard in this entire chain, severing the chain of infection through the hub cutter. This is a mechanical safety device used immediately after a single injection to shear the needle and its plastic hub from the syringe. It serves a twofold purpose. First, physical destruction, which destroys the connection point to physically prevent syringe reuse. Second, pathogen prevention, which eliminates needle stick injuries and prevents transmission of bloodborne pathogens such as HIV and hepatitis B. The shearing mechanism works like this. The metal needle is sheared off and drops securely into the puncture proof hub cutter container. The plastic barrel and hub must be directed exclusively into the white waste bin. This immediate destruction at the point of care guarantees operational perfection and clinical safety. Next, we'll see about day carriers. These are made of insulating material and carry two ice packs. They can keep a few vials cold for 6 to 8 hours at a time, and they are used only for a short few hour period, typically for outreach sessions close to the health facility. Next, let us understand the auto disable syringe. These are also known as reuse prevention syringes, and they are single use medical devices that automatically lock or break after a single injection. The key objectives behind this design are twofold. First, infection control, which stops the spread of blood-borne viruses like hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV caused by unhygienic reuse of standard plastic syringes. Second, meeting the immunization standard. Since the program exclusively utilizes zero point 0.5 milliliter and 1 milliliter auto disable syringes for fixed dose vaccination drives. Now, let us move to the ice lined refrigerator or ILR. It maintains a stable internal temperature of plus 2 to plus 8 degrees Celsius and can keep its contents cold for 12 to over 36 hours during a power cut. This performance comes from three features. First, holdover time, which keeps safe temperatures during long power outages without electricity. Second, thick insulation, using high density polyurethane foam to block external heat. And third, a top opening design, since most units load from the top to minimize cold air loss whenever the refrigerator is opened. An important practical point is the correct order of vaccines inside the ILR. Bivalent OPV vials are kept at the bottom of the basket. Measles containing vaccine vials are then laid out over the BOPV vials. The remaining vaccines are stored next in the upper part of the basket in the following order. First, BCG and JE, then Rotavirus Vaccine, then TT, then DPT and IPV, then Pentavalent Vaccine and PCV, and then Hepatitis B. Finally, the diluents are kept right at the top since they do not require the coldest zone and need to be easily accessible. Let us now understand holdover time in more depth since this concept applies to any cold chain equipment. Holdover time is defined as the time taken by the equipment to raise the inside cabinet temperature from its cutoff temperature to the maximum temperature limit of its recommended range. For example, in the case of an ILR, if the temperature is 4 degrees Celsius, then the time taken to reach 8 degrees Celsius from 4 degrees Celsius will be the holdover time for that ILR. Holdover time depends on several factors. First, ambient temperature, where a higher ambient temperature results in a smaller holdover time. Second, the number of frozen ice packs inside the equipment. Third, the frequency of opening the lid. Fourth, the quantity of vaccines kept inside with adequate space between the containers. And fifth, the condition of the ice packs inside non electric equipment, whether they are frozen, partially frozen, or melted. Hope you have understood about the Universal Immunization Program and cold chain management. If you found this video useful, please like and share with your friends and colleagues. Thank you.